Have you felt like you're slowly fading from the lives of others, less seen, less asked, less needed? It's not always loud. Sometimes the disappearance is silent, and by the time you notice, you've already become invisible. I'm 76. I used to be needed. Now, I'm not even sure if I'm noticed. But here's the truth. What feels like aging might be something deeper. Emotional fading, quiet isolation, the silent slip into irrelevance, it's real. But it's not irreversible. In this video, we'll uncover 5 signs you're disappearing without even realizing it and how to come back. If this resonates, like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow this space of reflection. Your presence here means more than you know. Chapter 1. A phone that stopped ringing. I didn't notice exactly when my phone stopped ringing. It wasn't sudden. No alarms, no dramatic fallout. Just one day I realized the silence had stretched too long. At first, it felt like a coincidence. Maybe everyone was busy, but weeks passed. The phone stayed quiet. My friends used to call just to chat. My kids would check in. Slowly those calls turned to texts, and even those began to fade. I sat in my living room and realized I couldn't remember the last time someone called me just because. They missed me. It wasn't about being forgotten on purpose. It was about life moving forward and me standing still. But emotional neglect, even unintentional, hurts just the same. Studies show social disconnection in older adults can cause depression, anxiety, and even physical health decline. That phone, once a bridge to the world, became a symbol of my quiet drift into invisibility. So I decided to do something simple. I started calling people first, old friends. My kids, neighbors, some answered warmly. Some didn't, but every time I felt a little more alive, a little more seen. If your phone has gone quiet, don't wait. Reach out. The silence doesn't have to win. Chapter 2. When I realized I wasn't asked anymore. I used to be the one people came to for answers. When my children faced hard choices, they'd call me. When my friends needed perspective, they'd ask me over coffee. Being asked meant I mattered. It meant I was still a part of their lives. But slowly, those questions stopped coming. It didn't happen dramatically. I just noticed one day that important conversations were happening around me, not with me. My children made big decisions without asking my opinion. My friends solved problems in group chats I wasn't in. I was still loved. I knew that, but I wasn't consulted. Not anymore. At first, I brushed it off. They're just being independent, I told myself. But underneath, I felt it a quiet ache, a growing sense that maybe I didn't matter like I used to. Psychologists say that when people stop seeking your input, your brain begins to interpret it as social detachment. That loss of consultation slowly chips away at a person's identity. You begin to question your relevance, not just to others, but to yourself. I had a choice to make. Either keep fading quietly or gently remind the world I still had something to offer. So I started speaking up again, not loudly, just enough. I asked questions. I offered thoughts. I shared stories. I showed them I was still here. And over time, something beautiful happened. They started asking again. Chapter 3. Loss of structure and purpose. I used to wake up with purpose. Not grand missions, just the quiet sense that my day meant something. Morning coffee, morning paper, morning plans. But slowly, that rhythm slipped away. It started after retirement. No alarm, no meetings. At first, it felt like freedom. I could stay in pajamas, sip coffee until noon, take naps without guilt. But that freedom blurred into drift. Days melted together. I lost track of what day it was, not because of memory loss, but because it didn't matter. Without structure, I started losing more than time. I lost momentum, curiosity, even joy. My hobbies felt dull. Errands felt optional. Some mornings, I didn't see the point of getting out of bed at all. Psychologists say that a sense of purpose is directly tied to mental and physical health. It keeps the brain engaged, emotions regulated, and even strengthens the immune system. Without it, we quietly decline inside and out. Eventually, I knew I needed to make a change. I started small watering plants. On a schedule, walking every morning, cooking a new recipe once a week. These rituals, though tiny, began to reweave the fabric of my days. Then I joined a local club, volunteered at a school, called an old friend. Each act pulled me gently back into life. Purpose doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be honest. If you've lost yours, don't wait for it to find you. Go looking, even in the quietest places. Chapter 4. Emotional numbness or disconnection. It didn't happen in a single moment, but one afternoon, I realized I hadn't felt anything in a long time. Not sadness, not joy, just nothing. A wedding announcement in the mail used to make me emotional. The sound of an old song once brought tears. But recently, it all passed over me like wind touching nothing, moving nothing. At first, I thought it was normal. Maybe this was what aging meant: less drama, fewer emotional highs and lows. But then I remembered, feelings aren't noise. They're life. Emotional numbness is one of the quietest and most dangerous changes that can happen as we age. Psychologists say it often stems from chronic loneliness, isolation, and unresolved emotional tension. The brain, in self-defense, begins to shut out what it believes it no longer needs. I wasn't upset. I wasn't depressed in the traditional sense. I was just blank, empty. I realized I had stopped engaging with anything that could stir me. I avoided sad movies. I skimmed good news without smiling. I listened to people's stories without really reacting. This disconnection didn't protect me. It was slowly erasing me. So I decided to feel again. Not all at once, just small steps. I started walking at sunset, noticing colors. I read poetry again, not for answers, but for emotion. I called my grandson and asked about his day, really listened, allowed myself to feel his joy, his stress, his teenage frustration. And one day, I found myself crying over something simple, a memory, a phrase. I cried and it felt like proof I was still here. Emotions are not indulgent. They are necessary. They remind us we are still alive, still connected, still capable of caring. And if you've stopped feeling too, please know this. You are not broken. You're not empty. You're just waiting to be moved again. Start with one thing, one moment, one real feeling. Chapter 5. Feeling invisible in public. It started subtly. I'd walk into the grocery store and no one made eye contact. The cashier smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give to wallpaper. Not unkind, just absent. On the sidewalk, people passed without noticing. At restaurants, I was addressed last, if at all. I became a shadow in spaces I used to belong to. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that I was overreacting. But invisibility doesn't scream, it erodes, slowly, quietly. It's not just about not being seen. It's about not being known, not being acknowledged for who you are, what you've lived, what you still carry in your heart. Sociologists call it social invisibility, a phenomenon where older adults feel overlooked, dismissed, faded into the background of younger, faster lives. And it's not just psychological, it affects health. Studies link invisibility to increased depression, anxiety, even reduced cognitive function. I wasn't asking for attention. I wasn't demanding a stage. But I wanted to matter, still, somehow. Then something changed. Not the world me. I started initiating conversation. Not because I was confident, but because I didn't want to vanish. I smiled at baristas, asked strangers how they were doing, complimented people's jackets, their dogs, their children. Some looked surprised, some smiled back. A few didn't respond at all. But every time, I felt a little more visible, a little more real. You don't need to be loud to be seen. You just need to show up with presence, with warmth, with the quiet confidence that you still deserve to take up space. So if you've been walking through the world feeling like a ghost, please hear this. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You still belong. And someone out there is waiting to see you fully if only you'll meet them halfway. Final, you are not done yet. I didn't disappear because of some grand betrayal. I disappeared because I stopped showing up for myself, for others, for the life I still had left to live. It was slow, painless, almost. Like a photograph fading in the sun. I stopped calling. I stopped asking to be included. I told myself I didn't want to be a burden, that I was fine alone. But the truth is, I was quietly grieving my own vanishing, not with tears, but with silence. With absence, there's a kind of grief that doesn't cry. It withdraws, shrinks, fades, and no one talks about it. But I am, because the day I realized I wasn't needed anymore was also the day I realized I still needed life. I still needed purpose. I still needed love, even if it looked different than before. We don't have to disappear. We can choose to reappear gently, bravely, awkwardly, beautifully. Start small. Reach out. Speak up. Offer help. Say hello. Show up, even if your voice shakes. Even if you've been quiet for years. Because here's what I've learned. You're still here. And that means you still matter. So if this story reminded you of yourself, please don't stay silent. Don't stay small. Take up space again. Someone out there needs what only you can offer. Start with this moment. Start with this breath. Start with this gentle reminder. You are not done yet.